Good afternoon, I think. Just wanted to ask you, are you all from around Vegas? Are you originally from here, or how many are not from here? Hawaii. See, a lot of people aren't from here. I grew up in the Midwestern Ohio, and you're in Ohio too? Yeah. And you know, I grew up around when I was 61, so it's a long time ago. A long time ago. And there wasn't much difference in the people that were there. They're all alike. They're either like me or like you, but there wasn't a lot of cross-culturalness. So the world was different back then, you know. We had a Taco Bell move in, and that was my first cross-cultural experience. I kid you not. There were no Latinos in town. Nobody from a Latino country went there, but boy, I thought I had done it a lot. You know, I come around, and I went into industrial sales, and I met a lot of people from all different places, all around the world. But you know, I connected with people. But there is something more than connection that has to go on. I think you have to engage people. And really what I want to talk about today is engaging people. And that means you're going to engage people that are not like you. You might not believe that, but there are going to be people that you don't know. You know, there's so many places today that are like that, for instance, you've probably heard it, church is one place that is, I'll say, monoculture, because if you're a black church, you're all black. If you're a Latino church, you're all Latino. You never see different people at churches, you know. Why? I think it's fear. There are people who are afraid to talk to different people that are not like them. And that's what I ended up doing. I went from sales, industrial sales, till I became a quote-unquote missionary catalyst. I don't know a better word for it. I did something nobody else did. But I started working around different people. And I want to share a few stories today about some people. And I want you to learn 3 things that'll help you be able to finally engage people. To engage anybody, the first thing you have to have is compassion. You know, there are a lot of people that are not like you, but they are still worth an awful lot. You know, there are neat people out there that you'll never meet, but you know, they might add to your life as well as you might add to their life. Compassion is the first thing that really has to happen. I want to tell you a story about a homeless guy named Stanley. Now his name is Stanley, it's not Stan. He told me that his grandfather is Stan, and he was named Stanley, and his grandfather would kick his tail if he started calling himself Stan. But Stanley was very interesting. He was, has a lot of the problems. He was homeless for a long time, and like a lot of people, he got homeless for unique things. He had a problem in his family. He left his wife left him, and he moved out on the street. Well, being on the street has given him some mental problems. And you can imagine some of the mental problems he has. Paranoia, big time. But you know, he doesn't trust anything. He doesn't trust the government, doesn't trust social workers. He just doesn't trust anybody. He knew he needed to get medication because of his problems. He was never diagnosed it, but he went out and self-medicated. That's a fancy way for saying he started by getting drunk. And Stanley is an interesting guy, because when I met him, and I'm wheeling around, there he is. He was sitting there reading his Bible, okay? And here's a homeless guy, drunk as a skunk, reading a Bible. And there's a picture there that's hard to fit sometimes. But I asked him, I said, well, are you a believer? And he goes, oh yeah, you can't make it through life unless you're a believer. And then I said, well, where do you go to church? He said, well, I don't go to church. Why? They don't care about me. All they want to do is give me a food or a blanket and stuff like that, but they don't know who I am. They never know my story. They don't know anything about me. They don't know my grandfather is Stan. They don't know what happened in my life. You know, what he needs is someone to actually have compassion for him. Now, and like he was saying, compassion is not feeding him. Government gives him $500 a month. He gets plenty of food at McDonald's for $500 a month. Compassion is not a blanket. You know, he's got plenty of blankets. What he needs is camaraderie. He needs someone to actually talk to him, to be able to share life. And that's what I ended up doing. What happened to me before all this happened, because I thought I understood it all. I was there, you know, I was at the height of the pinnacle. You know, here I am, I was in sales, number one salesman for a company, and then I left, decided to go into ministry, and I got my education. I was smart, you know. I didn't know a thing. Then I had a stroke. Now I'm really got some stuff going on. It's hard sometimes. You know, you get to ride around in a chair all the time. But other than that, you know, there's sometimes that it's not the greatest thing in the world. But when with Stanley and I were talking, he said, you know, really, I want to just get to know somebody. I want to talk to them. I want to be able to interact with them. I want to share with them what happened in the street last night, which, by the way, last week, a transformer blew up right by him. He said he thought a satellite had come down and landed on him. But, you know, those are the things that you're never going to learn about anybody unless you interact with them. You know, you think you can connect with somebody, but connection is kind of like, you know, the greeter at Walmart's. Hi there, how are you? And do you know what? They don't even know your name. They aren't, because there's the front door, they don't even know what you buy, you know? And you don't know them, except that maybe they're retired and they're trying to make a few extra dollars. But you know, you make a connection and you go right on. And that connection can be a real problem if you don't engage. And one of the things engagement brings is respect. You end up respecting people for who they are and where they've been through. And you know, when you respect somebody, it leads to trust over time. Now, they're not going to trust you right away, trust me. Stanley didn't trust me for a couple weeks because he thought I was there. But you know what? I get around a lot of homeless. I've not had one homeless person ask me for money. And I think it's because they feel sorry for me. I'm in a wheelchair. In fact, I'm called the Robo Man by a couple guys. You know, I thought that was pretty good too. But you know, you can meet so many people. This world has changed. I grew up in a place where, you know, there was almost all white people. They were blonde-haired or brown-haired. There were an occasional doctor's kids that were Chinese. And there was a black section. Sorry, folks, you're over here. But you know what I mean? They were hidden. You know, I go down to Compton a lot, and you know, Compton is kind of notorious. But you know what? There's about as many Latinos in Compton as there are black people, and you know, you don't know that unless you engage people in there. You really don't know. It's funny, the person I get my hair cut now is a Vietnamese lady, okay? She hardly speaks any English, which makes it real interesting getting your hair cut. You know, I go in and I say, number 3. I don't know what else she'll do, but she can pick the number 3 cutter and cut my hair, and that's important. But here she is. She's 5 years in this country, and she's a Buddhist, and you know, a lovely lady, but from a whole different worldview than me. But if I don't listen to her and find out that she's from the north part of Vietnam, and I don't realize that she's got kids, and I don't start talking to her about herself, she's not going to let me talk about myself other than Mom sitting in a chair. And that's not really talking, you know what I mean? That doesn't, I don't communicate anything. I got to know her fairly good, but there's another person that my wife actually got to know, and her name is Marie. Now, Marie came from a Central American country and was sold into sex slavery. Now, she came here and her grandmother sold her. And, you know, until you get to know somebody and talk to them and find out there's history, you don't know them. She left the guy that she was sold to in New York and came out here and began to work at a strip club. And the reason she did, guess what? She didn't have a green card. This is the only job she could get. She had 3 kids and she needed a job. She needed money. She had ran away from her, would have been like a 70-year-old, I say 70 because he's probably 61, but 70-year-old man who had bought her and was abusing her, really. Until my wife got to know her and really engage her, they were just like, you know, 2 people walk by each other and say hello. They got to really know each other. And people's lives will be transformed when they can get to know you and when you can get to know them. It really will, because if you don't, they hide who they are. They'll never let you know what they do. And you know what? You can't, there's some people won't respect them because of the hard life that they had. She's a bus driver now. She's got it worse because all those kids on a bus, oh my Lord. And then the sort of interesting thing is I want to kind of end up with this because I think trust is the big thing. It finally comes out of when you have compassion and you respect somebody. You get trust. And that trust that my wife developed with Marie was really important. But I want to tell you what, I had a stroke, and guess what? Life changes. And I ended up in a rehab nursing home. And I had a roommate, and I won't say his name, but you'll never guess where he came from. He was a member of a family that was known for the 60s because they killed a bunch of people, the Mansons. And he was a Manson. His wife was a Manson. And I got to know him. We talked about all kinds of things because we couldn't help it. He was stuck in a bed and I was stuck in a bed, you know. And we got to know one. We got to engage one another. And that was so important because that engagement led us to be able to talk about his wife. His wife was leaving him. Well, she decided to come back to him. He became a convert, not because I'm such a good preacher, you know, but he decided, he saw me and saw what was going on. He said, you know, I kind of like to be like that. And so he did. And then he had problems, mental problems too. And to a certain extent, you can understand that he'd been abused all his whole life when he was part of this Manson cult. But, you know, if I just made a contact with him, he would have been another Richard, and I could have said hi, and we could have left it at that. He would have never known my story, and I surely wouldn't have wanted to know his story. But, you know, the thing about it is, how many of you, now this I don't know how many here are single. There's probably some, okay? Yeah, not many, okay, never mind. Anyway, no. But when you were single and you went out to a bar, okay, you tried to connect, right? You tried to make a connection. You know, engagement? No. You know, You weren't thinking, I'm going to marry this person. You just wanted to get to first base. That's all you cared about. And because of that, you did not get to know them. You didn't know their family. You didn't know their siblings. You didn't know what town they grew up in. You didn't know anything about them, let alone if they like to eat greens, I'm from the Midwest, okay? Give me a break. You wouldn't know that. But you know what? If you have a compassion for somebody and you can respect them, and then you develop trust with one another, isn't that what we all want in life? Is to get to know people and have them get to know us. And you know what? I work with gangbangers. I work with prostitutes. I work with, good Lord, a lot of different type of people. We started a Russian church last year. I don't speak one word in Russian. I want you to know that. But I got to know them, and they did all the work, and I just kind of was the cheerleader. I work with Filipinos. Okay, any Filipinos in the house? You're all white, those bright lights, I can't tell. But you know what? Nicest people I've ever met, really are. And they get to help you, and you get to help them, and you begin to develop a relationship, and that relationship is what we all should strive for. If you only take 3 things home from this today, I want you to learn how to be compassionate. And that means you need to love people. You need to care, not just superficially. You need to care about them. You know their story. You need to respect them as people. They may have had a different life than you, a hard life. Most of your people here, all the people here, I've not had a stroke. You got to know me a little bit because I had a stroke and we talked. And trust. It takes the longest. But I'm telling you right now, when you get to learn to trust somebody, you really get to know them. They get to know you. And that will make a difference in your life and their life. And that's really all I have to say about that.